Assalamu alaikum. Dr. Nasir here. Okay, hope everything will be fine. So, our topic is the same, report writing. In report writing, we have been discussing long report. In the previous lecture, the lecture before it, we did discuss parts of long report. As I said in that lecture, basically the three parts: introductory parts, body of the report, that means report itself, and supplemental parts. So body of the report means the whole report. We will write that later on, but in long report, introductory parts and supplemental parts themselves are very important. So in the previous lecture we did discuss introductory parts. In today's lecture, today's video, we will talk about supplemental parts. As you can guess from the very name of it, supplemental is something that is additional. That is additional, right? Main thing is there, and supplement is something that bolsters that strengthens that reinforces that. Something additional. It means report is there, and after that there are some parts that are considered part of long report as a sort of supplement for the sake of additional information, additional whatever. So supplemental parts, basically a little bit variation is there, but generally speaking, we say these 4-5 things are always there in supplemental parts. Number one is appendix. The second is index. Okay. The third is bibliography. The fourth can be references. Okay. In long report, these things are very important. In short, obviously, they're not that important. And number 5 is what we call glossary. So, glossary. These 5-6 parts are there. Sometimes we say end notes and a little bit. But these 5 things, you should be 1% clear about these 5 additional parts of long report. Appendix, index, bibliography, references, and glossary. Okay. So some other marker. So appendix, try to understand, no need of cramming, just try to understand what's the literal meaning of the word append. Append stands for, append means to, yes, unite something with something. This word is from append. Append is to, suppose different pages are there, you say, yeah, okay, append all of these, right? Make them one through sort of tag or whatever. Append means to unite. So appendix means something that has been appended, something that has been appended with something. So in routine life you would have heard the word appendix. It's a very common word, appendix problem, right? Some of you might have gone through this. When if it perforates, then it's very troublesome, but in routine it's not the case. So over here in routine too, from medical point of view too, appendix in routine, that is not there. Some part of your intestine or something comes out, that's called appendix. Similarly, over here appendix means something that has been added to the original stuff. It means further clarification. You can say appendix means sort of additional information. You write a report, and for further clarification you write something, write some 2-3 pages, or it can be less or more. That very thing is called, that additional information is called appendix. That was not there in the original report, but you have added that. Okay. Index, a very common word you might have heard. Most of the students know this thing, that index means list of sort of actually topics that have been included in that report. It's fine, but the exact definition of index is, yes, alphabetical arrangement of topics discussed in that report. So at the end of different books you might have seen index is there, and words starting with, suppose topics starting with A are given under A, then B, then C, then D. Same is the case over here, that you make a list of topics, right? As I said in the introductory part, list of contents is there, that is something different. But when you give list of topics in alphabetical order, A, B, C, that very thing is called index. So obviously, in case of long reports and in case of voluminous books, if that thing is there, then it becomes a bit easier to find that thing. Find, suppose some topic starts with B, you say, okay, let's check it under B. It means this way you can. So the concept is, index means not just arrangement of topics, rather alphabetical arrangement of topics. Stress is on alphabetical. Clear? Bibliography, you might have heard this prefix biblio. The literal meaning of the word biblio is, it's not biblio. Biblio is a person who drinks or something. So this is biblio. The literal meaning of the word biblio is book. Graph basically means to draw something. Draw, make graph of something. So bibliography means, the literal meaning of the expression is the list of books that were somehow consulted in preparation of that report. It means the literal meaning of this is the list of books that were something like this, that were consulted in preparation of that report. Okay, in preparation of that report, whatever that report is. But the thing is that, suppose you want to write a long report, bibliography becomes very important. Sometimes you collect data from different places. You say, okay, yeah, I'm not clear about the topic. You visit different sites, you consult different books, right? The list of all that stuff, the basic meaning is the list of books, but it might include sort of magazines, sort of other handouts or whatever. So you just mention that thing. And how do we write this thing? In bibliography we write, suppose, the name of that book, the writer of that book, right, and the date of that book, when that book was published. So this sort of book is, this sort of stuff is mentioned, right? And on ethical grounds too, it is required, right? Otherwise too, it must be there. If you use someone's stuff, if you take something from, suppose, Stephen Hawking's book, so obviously you are bound to give that thing. But the point is, people do mix these two things. In most of the books they have written that bibliography stands for reference, and reference means bibliography. So this is a little bit misconcept, though there is a very subtle difference like this, but difference is there. So reference, you might have heard, we will say, give me the reference of that thing, right? Someone says this thing has been mentioned, in the such and such volume of the Bible. This thing has been written on such and such page of the Holy Quran, something like that. So reference means, definite actually. Okay. So what is the difference? Is it the same? They are the same in a way, but there is sort of difference. In case of bibliography, suppose you do consult 40 books, this book, that book, that book, that. But in a reference, out of this 40, you might just make mention of 4 books. You did consult 40, but practically in that report, you just use the stuff from 4 out of 40. So reference is narrowed down form of that. It is more squeezed form of that. So rather, in case of reference, you don't just mention that book, you mention the very page of that book, suppose you say this thing has been mentioned on, right, page number, right, 165, okay, the name of that book, and page number, or somebody say chapter number 1, page number, as Dr. Zakir Naik usually writes, whenever he discusses something, so he quotes. He's very popular because of this thing, that whenever he makes comparative study, so he gives reference. In general, most of us say this thing is happening, this thing was mentioned in some hadith or in some whatever. When someone say, okay, give me the reference, so most of us become silent. Here reference I'm not clear about, but I have heard, I have read somewhere. But if you say this thing has been mentioned in Surah Nisa, page number this, chapter number this, so that thing becomes definite. So reference means it is a sort of bibliography, but narrowed down form of that. Please be all ears, listen to me. Clear? Okay. So reference is something more definite, it is something a little bit general. Okay. Glossary, right, a familiar term. Glossary basically means whenever you write something, so there are so many right terminologies, right, so many technical terms, so many right jargons, so many abbreviations. Then glossary, actually you do explain that thing. Glossary means, yeah, what? List of sort of explanation of what? Explanation of terminology. Explanation of terminology used in that book. Because this thing is sometimes very helpful in the sense that if you are not clear about the glossary, suppose, right, if someone says balance of trade, so if you don't understand the very expression, what's meant by balance of trade, so for you, right, you see what? If you say balance of payment, so if you are familiar with this thing, it's okay. Otherwise, you see what this thing, he has been repeating this thing, but what's actually this right terminology stand for? Or sometimes instead of writing the whole, they just write, suppose, BOT, and they go repeating that thing, BOP, balance of payment. So if you are not clear about that thing, you can understand that thing, right? Sometimes a simple, right, just one terminology might cause confusion, right? Because in different fields, terminologies have different interpretations. So glossary actually explains all that stuff, right? Abbreviations, terminologies are just to make it clear. So this is the story. So supplemental parts are what? They are additional parts in addition to the report, right? These parts are there, and they are almost always there. Appendix is basically anything that is added to that report for further clarification, for further explanation, that is appended. Index means the topics that were discussed. We actually make a list of all those topics alphabetically, A, B, C. Bibliography, the little meaning is list of books, right? In broader sense, it might include so many other things. And reference basically means, right, those actually things that were, suppose you say, we have taken this stuff from such and such page of such and such book, so that becomes reference, in which you mention that the writer, chapter number, page number, and that things makes your report a bit more concrete. And glossary, as I just said, is the list of terminologies used in that report, and the purpose is just to, because sometimes you are not clear about the basic terminology, right, 1, 2, so you go on waiting here, what the hell, what's happening? Suppose someone uses the word D, you say, what the hell, what is the DD? This is demand draft or whatever. So you should be clear about this thing. And inshallah, in the coming lecture, we will discuss the body of the report, and the by body we means the whole report. And for that, we will inshallah take resort to short report, and short report can be formal, it can be informal. We will inshallah dilate upon that in the next lecture. Thanks a lot for being so patient, so cooperative. Take care. See you. Allah.